everyone. Welcome to this edition of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. As always, I am Edward, and you are you. And I ask you to bear with me because I've had a few too many bat mugs full of coffee this morning, so I am a little amped up, and it's going to make kind of sitting still a challenge for me. And that means, what do I do with my hands? So I am going to endeavor to work on that as I record the pod. So today, let's talk porn. Yes, we're going to talk about porn and the BDSM lifestyle. Now, before I jump into the meat and potatoes of this, happy holidays, before I forget. I want you to understand I don't view porn as a bad thing. I am not sitting here lecturing you to not watch porn or porn is bad, but there are some alarming trends. I found a study that came out and it really sort of piqued my interest. So, once again, I went down the scientific rabbit hole. And one of the beautiful things, as we are sort of halfway through the 2020s now, probably a little bit more than half, there's been a lot of research about the lifestyle. And I was shocked when I first saw the study about pornography and one specific aspect of BDSM and kink. And that got me going down more and more. And I found that there were studies on pornography and how it relates to BDSM. And some of the findings actually shocked me. So that's what we're going to talk about. Um, let's start with how, probably the basic thing, how pornography tends to shape people's views on BDSM. Um, Many people describe it as the way, sort of one of their entry points to the lifestyle. They see it in a porn scene that they're watching on their phone or their computer, and it piques their interest. So they start looking into the lifestyle more. So in that regard, porn is fantastic because it allows people to open up and to, discover the lifestyle. The problem is, and this is really what I want to talk about, is that so many people, unfortunately, don't just look at pornography as the entry point or something to entertain them or give them some ideas of things they want to try, or they see something and go, ooh, that looks fun. People, sadly, more and more are looking at pornography as education. What they see on their screen is something they want to try, and they watch that wonderful action, the kinky tango without pants on their screen, and think this is educational. This is what BDSM looks like, or this is what kink looks like, or this is how DS looks. And that's really where the big problem comes in. Um, and since we're looking at it, many people are looking at it as an educational resource. When they look at the DS side of things, what they see in porn is how they then decide the role in DS that they would like to explore. Perhaps they see some porn with, a DS dom sub relationship going on, and what they see in that film is how they base what role they want to be in the lifestyle. And of course, that's really not a helpful guide to DS or to roles, because there is so much more to DS than kinktastic dance without pants. In fact, many people forget that there are people who are, asexual, sexual repulsed, or even abstinence that are involved in BDSM and DS. Sex is not a thing for them. So obviously, porn is not a wise choice when you're going to make your decision on what role specific you would like to explore. The other thing is, it's a common misunderstanding that people equate what they see on their screen with real life. And let's face it, porn, even the homemade, the OnlyFans, the creators who are creating their own adult content, which is absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of the most empowering things the internet has allowed people to do. They can They can be sexual, and they can take their sexuality and use it to create content, and that content can resonate with people, and that is fantastic. But people see content online, especially, and equate that with, this is what the lifestyle looks like. This is a healthy DS relationship. This is what it looks like. Or if I want to explore spanking, it's going to look just like this edited thing I saw on my screen. So typically, roles, dynamics are portrayed very simplistically. You don't see, typically, there are exceptions, but let's face it, negotiation and talking about consent um, are probably not going to drive clicks to your adult content. So we don't see those. And typically, once the final orgasm happens, we don't see aftercare. It just fades to black. Okay, everybody had their explosive moment, and it is time to move on to the next scene in our film. So we don't see those. Um, and sadly, there are individuals who struggle to separate porn from reality. What they are seeing on their screens, they equate with, this is real, this is reality, this is not entertainment. It's almost like watching a police drama, maybe binge watching your police drama that you find. I recently went through a binge and watched the Bosch series on Amazon. But it would be like me watching the Detective Bosch go through the adventures that befall him, and think, after I've binged all those seasons, to think, yes, I am now a competent police detective because I have watched this show. And that is a huge problem, especially since most things, when it comes to kinktastic play, they involve risk. Sometimes the risk is very minimal. Spanking, for example, can be very low risk, but if you don't educate yourself on where and where not to spank, you can cause some serious harm. And of course, there are much more dangerous types of play. And it was a study on one of these dangerous types of plays that got me going down this rabbit hole. And we'll get there to that specific. But typically, what you see on the screen is not what reality looks like. And there's preparation, there's negotiation, there's consent, there's education that goes into it. And also, let's face it, porn is not known for its dialogue. And therefore, the presentation of DS and BDSM and kink is very tropey. You typically see pain equals pleasure across the board. So if you are new and exploring and watching your favorite creators, you're going to typically see that myth that, oh yes, when you haul off and spank the person you were playing with, they're going to find it incredibly sexy and it'll be a huge turn on for you both. When the reality is, pain, even something as simple as a spanking, for many actually is not a turn on, and it may in fact be a hard limit. So we see those tropes where we see the dominant, um, you know, snap their fingers and the submissive just drops to their knees, which can be great fun when you are doing a fun scene with your partner or partners. But the reality is, it doesn't work like that in the real world. And once again, people do have issues separating, I guess we'll say, fact from fiction, treating pornography as education. This is what it looks like. So, what are some of the risks of using porn as your source of lifestyle education? We don't talk about safety typically in adult content. There's no autonomy, especially on the submissive side. It's sort of dominant says, the submissive role does. And once again, reality and what's on your screen differ. It can also very much normalize dangerous behaviors. And once again, we'll kind of dig a little deeper into that in just a few minutes. But it's very important to look at the risk. You don't see, that I in the Fry's consent formula in adult content. You don't see that informed part where the partners actually have a conversation about the risk that can be happening if we decide we want to pursue this. And here's another big one. People will copy what they see on their screen and assume that it's the right way to do it. They don't educate themselves about techniques, they don't seek guidance, and they don't practice. They just see it on the screen and here we go. I watched this, I've been on OnlyFans for the last month and I've watched, X, Y, and Z creators do this, so I am an expert. And it creates unrealistic expectations. And since we're not having those conversations about consent, there's no negotiation. Limits for the porn educated person can be seen as something to overcome, not to respect. Um, and the research does show some interesting things about the difference between somebody who is newer to the lifestyle and those who are more experienced. Typically, those who are newer take porn much more literally, assuming it shows how things must be or should be done. And of course, that is not the case. And this especially applies to, and I'm sure you're going to guess this before I say it, but men are much more susceptible to that type of belief that what they're seeing on their screen reflects reality. Um, Now, the research also shows that people who are more experienced will look at pornography more as a creative thing. They'll watch it obviously for their enjoyment, but they will pick up ideas and then translate those ideas they picked up on things they might want to explore into, okay, I want to explore this that I saw online, and how do I negotiate this with my partners, and in what context can I bring this into a scene that we will be comfortable with. Um, the other thing that was surprising about this too is not really surprising, but it makes sense. The more years somebody has experience in the lifestyle, it does show a greater increased use of safe words in, during playtime. The more experienced somebody is, the more comfortable they are using safe words, because let's face it, during watching adult content, we typically don't see safe words used, or even sometimes when we do see them used, they are blatantly ignored, and the person using the safe word suddenly has an orgasmic experience because the person who is the dominant in the scene pushes through, ignores their safe word, and it leads to just a wild orgasmic response. Sort of like the James Bond movies, where James Bond ignores consent and holds down the Bond girl and kisses her, and instantly all of her saying no, no, no fades away, and it's like, oh, James. It's the same concept, just more graphic. So yeah, that's one of the things that came to light in this. Also, um, studies show that people who are more involved in the community, and I use that very loosely, whether it's online groups or in person attendance to seminars, or even doing things, as I said, online. If you have community experience, you are much more likely to also understand that first aid training needs to be a part of your kinky toolbox. You'll see that people who are experienced typically do have some first aid training, and many of them will know CPR, which once again is very important when we come to the study that triggered all of this. And the flip side of that is somebody who has not invested in community, even if they've practiced the lifestyle for a while, but they do so privately, say behind closed doors with select partners, they are going to believe that porn adequately, uh, reflects safety in the lifestyle, and they have no additional safety training, which of course is not good. And of course, as I said before, porn does not show negotiation typically. Consent is not highlighted. You don't see the partner sitting down and saying, "Hey, let's plan a scene." In fact, before recording this, Sailor and I were having a conversation about a naughty librarian role play that we're working on, and it's actually a conversation. How would you feel if I did this? How would you respond to that? Literally, we're sort of writing the movie script. And no, we're not going to be posting it online, even though when we play it out, it will be, I am sure, very hot and amazing. And yes, there will be a script, and I'm sure the dialogue will be absolutely stimulating. But no, we're not going to share it. So porn leads to the consent, the negotiation not happening, and it leads to people who are newer not really grasping the importance of preparation and communication. So and those are very important because you need to have that so that when you're seeing that your planning does come to its end, everyone involved sort of knows where the climactic part of the role play or the scene is and what happens after. Do you need aftercare? How do you like aftercare? How are we going to do aftercare once we finish? I mean, that can be very, very important for most people involved in the lifestyle, aftercare. And once again, it's something that you have to understand what works and what doesn't work for yourself and your partners when it comes to that. The screen just doesn't fade to black, and regular life just doesn't resume. You don't finish your scene and say, okay, get dressed, let's go out to dinner. There's there for most people there's the aftercare part of it that is very important. Now I want to talk about, I know I hinted at it, about the study that got me going down this rabbit hole. And the study is titled "The Prevalence of Sexual Strangulation slash Choking Among Australians." Now, I know Australia is not, say, as populous as the United States and Canada, but I think it's a very good place to look at. I mean, it's very culturally similar to North America, to Europe. So I believe, and this is me believing, I don't know whether there's actual fact to back it up, but I think it's going to sort of carry over very well to pretty much everywhere else in the world. Um, so this is talking about what they term sexual strangulation slash choking, which in kink terminology is breath play, which is one of the, if not the most dangerous things you can engage in with a partner. So the study found that first awareness of strangulation, of breath play, comes when somebody is an early adult. 61% of the people in the study, and it was a big study, it looked at a lot of people. It wasn't just let's get 60 people in a room, it's in the thousands. 61% said their first introduction to it came through pornography. This is where they saw it for the first time and went, "Oh, that looks interesting." And before I continue on, I don't want you to think I am sitting here lecturing you, saying don't do breath play, or if you enjoy it, it's naughty, it's wrong. Not at all. Just want you to understand it is one of the most dangerous types of play there is, and there is not, and I looked, there's not a single kink-friendly doctor or other type of professional that says it can be done safely. So 61% of people first discover breath play through porn. Now, this is where it kind of gets amazing. 51% of those people said that they had been, and this is the survey's word, sexually strangled by a partner. And the reason why the survey continues to refer to it as strangulation or choking is because in reality, that is what you're doing. When we say breath play in the world of BDSM, we're sort of softening it. We're putting a smiley face on it rather than calling it what it is. It is strangulation for arousal. So that's where that is coming from. So 57% reported that they have been choked by a partner. 51% of people reported that they had choked a partner during sex. 44% have done it both ways. They have choked and been choked. And 16% of all the people that responded and worked with this worked with the researchers. And once again, this is actual researchers. This is not say a cosmopolitan poll. This is actual research. And I will list the studies that I used in the notes for the podcast. So if you want to dive deep and take a look, you certainly are welcome to do that. So 16% reported that in the last time that they had sex, that strangulation was a part of it. And this is where I was absolutely flabbergasted, and what sent me down this rabbit hole of pornography and education, or pornication, I guess we can call it, is pornography. Of all the respondents, it was the number one way people learned how to do breath play. Think about that. Probably one of the most dangerous activities in the lifestyle. The majority of people learned how to do it from porn. That's scary. It really is. Uh, and that number is 35%. So over a third of the people who responded said that porn was how they learned how to do it. And we know porn is not accurate. And this is what people are duplicating during their playtime. So that in itself is scary. And then let's look at the consent side of it, right? We know consent is a foundation of anything BDSM or kink related. And 24%, almost 25, is 24.9. So a quarter of the people who have done breath play um, have not given or received consent beforehand. They just grabbed onto the person's throat and did it using, more than likely, porn as their educational resource to constrict airflow and blood flow to the brain. That sort of scares me a bit, and I hope it does. Maybe not scares you, but I hope it highlights the risk of using porn as education. Um, Only about 19% of people said that they had ever negotiated breath play or sexual strangulation before the encounter itself. So where there was consent, it was during the middle of play. It's like, oh, may I choke you now? Not, this is what I want to do during play. How do you feel? Let's plan this. It was literally, consent was given in the heat of the moment. And then we know that getting consent in the heat of the moment is not truly consent, because everyone is, in the middle of that endorphin rush. And just short of 10% of women reported that they ask their partner or partners to stop, and they didn't. So we're using, once again, porn, which doesn't show consent, and we're having, 10% of women who are being strangled say they asked their partner to stop and they didn't, which once again goes back to that porn not showing consent. So that in itself, those are sort of the scary things for me that led me down this rabbit hole. Um, the other key takeaways from the survey is that because it is becoming more and more prevalent, more and more mainstream, people do not know the risk. They absolutely do not know it. Also, many people reported that they expect strangulation, breath play, to actually be a part of any sexual encounter. And they have not done any of the research. They don't know the risk. They don't know the medical evidence of the risk. And the thing about breath play is its effects can show up days or weeks after. Stroke, is a huge risk. You are constricting blood and air from your brain, which your brain, when it lacks those key things, it does get floaty and it does feel good in a way. But it's obviously very dangerous because your brain needs blood, oxygenated blood, to function correctly and properly. And denying that can lead to dangerous things that may not happen in the moment, but it can come later. And think about this. Once again, the people who statistically are using porn as their educational device, they don't know they don't know CPR, they don't know how to do rescue breaths. Those types of things they don't know how to do. So you're taking a risky activity, and if something goes horribly wrong, they don't know the steps to fix it. And here in the United States, if, let's say, even if it was consensual, you negotiated it beforehand, you wrote a contract that you both signed, and you had a legal notary that just happened to notarize your consent agreement to breath play, and something went wrong, that consent agreement means nothing in a court of law. If it goes the absolute worst way wrong, the best you could hope for would be a manslaughter conviction, which, to quote the movie Office Space, would put you in a pound you in the ass prison. There's no getting around that. So if something goes horribly wrong with this, even with a notarized consent agreement, you are going to be guilty of a felony. So it's one of those things where most people, when they think about breath play, I'm sure felony conviction is not something that is being thought about. But it really should be part of that, because understanding the repercussions of what can go wrong is a very important part of the informed consent. Um, Now, for those people who do engage in the community, and once again, the big umbrella community term, research shows that even if it's just the online community, people are much more likely to value advice from their peers, which is very important, to talking to other people who may have experienced what you're curious to experience. People who do engage, once again, broadly with the community, are more likely to take classes, attend workshops, even if it's online, or to read educational books on the lifestyle. And those who only engage in the lifestyle in private, behind closed doors, that do not choose to engage, once again, with that broader community, they are very much less likely to have any kind of first aid training, and especially when it comes to CPR. They typically do not have these skills, which heightens the risk factor even more. Um, and this is the scary fact that the Australian survey showed. Those who believe that pornography is also educational, those people were very likely to have zero safety training. So that in itself is a scary, scary combination. So we've talked about all the negatives about pornography as an educational resource. Let's talk about a few of the positives to end with. Right? We've done all the negatives. Let's look at what porn can give us that's positive. It can introduce us to new ideas. We could see a new toy and go, "Ooh, that looks fun," or even you see, some adult content, and they do a role play, and you're like, ooh, that could be really, really good. Um, so you get ideas from from adult content, which is fabulous. And it's just a matter of taking those ideas and learning about them and learning how to integrate something that appeals to you into a scene with a partner through informed consent and, of course, negotiation. Um, and it also can kind of pair nicely with our educational resources. We find something appealing that we want to try. It opens up a rabbit hole for us to go down to research and to learn about it, and making the education fun, because we are hoping that at the end of our education we are going to still want to do this and do it with our partner or partners. Um, so I think the key thing with adult content is to frame it as inspiration rather than education. I think that's really the big key. It should inspire us, but it should not be our educational go-to thing. So the key takeaway I have for everyone is, please, if you see something in porn, use it to inspire you, and then go out and actually educate yourself about what has been inspired. And don't treat pornography as educational content. Don't assume what you see on the screen is going to be how it works in real life. And always please remember the importance of informed consent. And of course, with consent, any partner can revoke it at any time for any reason and call a stop to what is going on, which is very unlike what you see in adult content. So I want to thank you for watching this podcast. And no matter where you're watching or listening to it, if you could tap the like button, I would really appreciate that. I know it sounds like I'm groveling for it, but what the like button does is it simply lets the algorithms know that I'm not screaming into the void about BDSM and kink. There are people out there who enjoy my content, and that allows the algorithms to share my content with other people who have the same interest as you. So it is me asking for your help to get my content in front of more people. And always, I would really love it too if not only you clicked like, but you also subscribed or followed, depending on the channel you're watching or listening this to. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you making time to share a little bit of your life with me. And I hope that our porn education video was very helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a happy and safe and festive holiday season. I look forward to chatting with you again very soon.